So I bought a van. Hey guys, welcome to my channel. I'm Beck and I'm going to be converting this Peugeot Partner into a micro camper. I personally have absolutely zero DIY experience beyond making the odd piece of IKEA furniture, and even that went badly. I own 2 screwdrivers, a tape measure and a mini hammer, and that is it. When I was planning this project, I found watching people's conversion journeys on YouTube really helpful. So I'm hoping that this can do the same for any future van converters, because if I can do it, genuinely anybody can do it. I'm going to document the entire journey from start to end with all of the details. I'm going to include all of the prices and my budget. I'm going to list every product I used. So if you are feeling really overwhelmed at the prospect of converting your own camper van, hopefully this series will be helpful. In this video, I'm going to be going through finding the van, buying the van, checking the van, all the early prep things that you have to do, like insurance, tax, and then a couple of thoughts on the early plans I'm thinking of doing with the van. So I basically just searched online every day for the past 6 months, in particular looking at Facebook Marketplace, Auto Trader and Quirky Campers. I did find that Facebook Marketplace was the cheapest of the 3. Auto Trader seemed to be a little bit more expensive. I don't know if that's because they've got garages on there selling vehicles as well, but I found Facebook Marketplace was the cheapest. I knew I was looking for something around 10 years old with roughly 100,000 miles on the clock, so that just helped me narrow things down. So I don't know anything about vans, so I was a bit anxious at this stage, making sure I wasn't falling for any scams or not really knowing what to look out for. So I'm going to give you a couple of checks that I did when I was looking for this van, just to give me a bit of peace of mind. There were 2 free checks that I did with pretty much every van that I viewed online because they were free, and they can both be done on the government website, and all you need is the registration plate of the van, which most adverts will include. First is checking the tax history of the van. This wasn't massively helpful, but it just tells you if the van's been legally taxed. And the second was a lot more helpful because this was the MOT history of the van. So this gives you the full history of all the MOTs, whether it passed, whether it failed, what it failed on, what the advisories were. I found this was helpful for 2 reasons. Firstly, any advisories on the most recent MOT give you an idea of what you're going to have to fix first. And secondly, just you can kind of gauge if a vehicle's been looked after. If a van is failing its MOT every single year because a bulb's out, the window wipers are out, the tyres are under, like these are things which infer that it hasn't been super looked after, and that to me was a bit of an amber flag. If you know nothing about vehicles like me, there is a third check you can do just to make you feel less anxious about the situation. This is a paid check, so you might not want to do it for all the vehicles, but maybe some vehicles that you're really serious about seeing. It's the AA history check of the vehicle, and it does come with a small cost. You can either pay £15 to check the history of 1 vehicle, or you can buy a voucher for £30, which lets you check the history of 5. And because you can check 5 vehicles with that, it works out at roughly £6 per vehicle. Now it is obviously a cost, but I'm really glad that I did this. I did this check for 2 vans, including this one, and the first one came back with some like huge red alert, really scary thing that the free tax and MOT one didn't. So for £6, I think it's worth it if you don't know anything about vans and you want a bit more security. Lastly, there are some checks you can do in person when you actually go to visit the van. Now in finding and checking and buying this van, I followed the Van on a Mission YouTube video really closely, and it's great. I'm going to link it below. If you're buying a van and you're feeling anxious, definitely watch their video because they cover everything from start to end of this process. Now, like I say, I know nothing about vans, but when I went to view the van, firstly, I walked around the van, checked to see if there are any scuffs on it. Make sure you do a test drive as long as the seller's comfortable with that and you have temporary insurance. You can lift the bonnet and check the engine if you know what you're looking for. I lifted the bonnet, but I didn't know what I was looking for. And by doing those few checks, you can just feel a little bit more secure if you go on to buy the van, that you did everything you could to minimise any scary big costs. I ended up buying my van off Facebook Marketplace, and I did go alone to meet a stranger in a car park who I'd met off the internet. So that is pretty much ignoring all safety advice you can possibly give. But I had such a positive experience. The seller was absolutely lovely, and it was really positive. So I know we hear loads of really scary tales out there, but a lot of people selling on Facebook are just normal people like you and me. So don't be put off by that. Just make sure you feel safe and secure and you put those measures in. If you can take someone with you, do. I wanted to, but just nobody was free. But I did make sure to meet in a public place. I made sure that I had friends who knew where I was going. So just make sure you're looking after yourself and you're being safe. Like I say, the seller of this van was absolutely lovely. In its previous life, this van had been used on family farms, so it is a bit banged up from, you know, having stuff thrown in the back, but it has been really well looked after. Its service history is brilliant, and you can tell it's been cared for, which is all you can ask for in a previously owned car. So I travelled down to view the van. Like I say, I did all those checks, walked around, talked to the seller. Again, I followed the questions that the Van on a Mission video suggests that you ask. So again, note those down and make sure you ask those. And once I was happy with it and I'd done a test drive, I said, yeah, I'd love to buy it from you. And then we sat in the van together and we filled out the paperwork. So the important thing you need as the new owner of the vehicle is the V5 slip that says that you are the new vehicle owner. You need to tax the vehicle because unfortunately you can't transfer that over from a previous owner. You can do that on your phone. It takes 5 minutes. I'll put the website down below. And also you need insurance. Now you can sit at the side of the road and set up your actual insurance, or you can just get temporary insurance, which is enough to like at least get you home, and then you can set up your actual insurance. So this is what I did. I set up a temporary insurance with a temp cover. Again, I'll drop the link below. I set this up for 3 days and it cost me around £75 for those 3 days. I knew I was going to be away for a couple of days, so I didn't want to have to think about setting up my actual insurance until I got home. And then when I got home, I went with Sterling. It seems like everybody who has a van or a van conversion or a camper van is with Sterling, and I'd heard really good things about their customer service. Sterling also seems good because you can be insured whilst you convert the van, whereas I don't think many traditional insurance will let you do that. So once I was home, I set that up and it's about £70 a month. The tax on this vehicle is about £30 a month. So just a little bit about the van. I have named her and her name is Splore. Now, I have had a lot of feedback on that name, not too much of it positive, but unfortunately that's just her name. That's who she is Splore. She's a Peugeot Partner, as I think I've mentioned, and she's a 2015 plate, and she's got just under 120,000 miles on the clock. So she's pretty much exactly what I was looking for. She is a short wheelbase, so she is the shortest in both length and height that you can buy. And I paid $2,700 for her. So I'm going to be documenting the whole conversion process, start to end, in as much detail as I can, so that hopefully if you're thinking of making your own camper van, this can help with those little steps. I do imagine that the build will be in like 2 distinct phases. Phase 1 is trying to get it sleepable by September so that I can take it on a road trip around Scotland, and phase 2 is next summer I'll tackle the electrics. That's because I don't have the money for the electrical system right now, so I'm going to have to save up for at least a year, and then I can work on the electrics separately. So in phase 1 I'll be insulating the van, I'll be hopefully putting a roof vent on, just a little windmill one, hopefully putting roof bars on the top of the van, carpeting and sound deadening, maybe some cladding, unsure on that yet. And the layout, I think I'm going to go very simple, just a single fixed bed here that pulls out into a small-ish double, and then a little just cabinet here just for storage. And I think I'm going to use the recesses in the walls to create some kind of recessed shelving. There are 2 little quirks with this van specifically that I hadn't done my research on before getting it, that I am still figuring out how to tackle. The first is that I know I want to be able to access the back of the van from the cab, and so my plan was to take the bulkhead out. That's slightly more complicated with the Peugeot Partners because the seat belt for the middle third seat is attached to part of the bulkhead. Now, I have seen people remove half the bulkhead, so at the moment that's my plan, is to take out half, but we'll have to be flexible with that and see how we go. The second thing is these black plastic pieces on the sides of the van. Whenever I've watched videos of people converting vans, they take these off. A, so they can insulate behind it, and B, just to give you a bit more room. So each one of these is like 5 centimeters deep, so you're losing like 10 centimeters, but there's electric under that one. In some ways that's quite a cool feature, because you've got an electric port in the back of the van, which yes, does work off the van's main battery, but still. But it is a little bit tricky, because I presume when I pull that panel off, which I haven't done yet, there will be wires behind it. It probably isn't a big deal that there's wires behind here, and I've spoken to a couple of friends and they've said that we have options. I can either close those wires off, however you do that. I can take out the little 12 volt like cigarette port and put it into like whatever wooden kind of fixture or whatever I want to put in there, or I can just leave the plastic and carpet over it and just accept that kind of 5 centimeter loss. To be honest, I'm leaning towards that last option, partly because the electrics terrify me and it seems like the easiest and simplest thing to do, but also because I do actually need access to both sides behind these panels for like changing the bulbs and such. So I think I might just carpet over them and just accept the loss of 10 centimeters. Make sure you follow the rest of the series, guys, to see how the conversion's going on. And please, if you have any tips at all, please leave them below in the comments. I'm a complete novice, like I say, and I would be very welcome to any tips that you might have. There's no going back now, because I have bought this van. I mean, I guess I could just drive a van, an empty van, for the rest of my life, but hopefully we will make it into a camper van. Thanks, guys. I'll see you in the next video.